Today we're going to learn eloquent JavaScript. This, my friends, is, if not the most popular book, it's one of the most popular books in JavaScript. The next 4 weeks we should be doing all JavaScript. We'll get progressively more deep into it. So we're basically going to do all of cs116 and then some in 4 weeks in JavaScript. Luckily, you've already had cs116. Probably some of you even had already cs216. But the way that objects are handled in JavaScript is not like any other language I've ever seen. But before we start, let's talk about anything that we have learned up to this point. Let me pause the video for a moment. So if you feel basically comfortable with CSS and HTML, let's dive down the rabbit hole of JavaScript and see where it takes us. If you Google eloquent JavaScript, you're going to see a link for the book and a link for the code sandbox. What I'm going to recommend you do is open up a tab for each. So here I've got eloquent JavaScript. I'll just open this one, and this is going to give me the book. I'll go back and I'll open up the code sandbox, and now I've got the book and the code sandbox. Beautiful thing about eloquent JavaScript is it's a really good book and it's absolutely free. Free is my favorite word, and that's pretty much a word you can use a lot in web development. This is what you would learn in CS116, right? Data types, how to name variables, identifiers, how a program's structured and things like that. Basic little things. So another thing that you can do, kind of a cool thing about being a front-end web developer is you don't really need any compiler. You don't need NetBeans or any of these little compilers. You can do it right on your browser. You can write functions, everything you want right in your browser. So if you click open another tab and you do inspect, you can click on the console and you can, even Google has an error on it, and you can start programming, right? I can say x equals 5, and I can say y equals 7, and then I can say x plus y, and I can get a value on that. So we can program. Isn't it nice? Like when we're doing Java or C++, so we go to codepad.org, open up a little window, test our little subroutine, and then go back. Well, here in web development, we can just do it right in the browser. Kind of a nifty little. There's a lot of things we can do in the browser, and we'll get to them and introduce them as we go along. But one of the most important things that it's not a bad idea to understand at the outset is, unlike a lot of other languages, JavaScript, you can assign functions to identifiers. So really a function is a variable. They call them first-class functions. So like, for example, if I say z gets a function, and then I'll say a, b, where a and b are the parameters to the function, and I'll say return a plus b. Now, can you see that okay? If I hit enter, it's going to, and if I type in z, it just tells me that's the function definition, right? But if I say z of 1, 2, it gives me 3. So the concept of a function being something that you can assign to an identifier is not something that you see in too many languages. And it gives you a whole bunch of power that, it's just not available. You'll find some people hate it, other people think it's amazing. I don't know, you would be the judge, but this is the direction we're going to be going in. So let's just go into the JavaScript book, and let's just click Part 1, Types and Operators, and let's just kind of start walking through the language. Of course, everything in computers is binary. This book starts you off from scratch. The first couple of chapters is really, raw beginner stuff. But it's not a bad idea to make sure that people feel comfortable with it. So, but how does binary math work? We all had that right. Did anybody not have that? Hopefully. And then the concept of an integer. In JavaScript, there's no such thing as an integer or a float or a double or anything like that. There's just number. So the data types that are available are not quite the same. So we have a number type, which is any kind of numeric value, whether it has a decimal point in it or not. And you can do arithmetic functions on those numbers the same as you would in other languages that you're familiar with. Parentheses work the same way. There are some unusual numbers. There is literally the number infinity. You can assign infinity to a value. So if we go back to our thing here and I say whatever C gets infinity, I wonder if I have to do C gets infinity. So now C is infinity, and if I say D gets infinity, and it's got to be a capital infinity. If I say C minus D, it gives me nan. Just not a number. A real number has a mathematical meaning, right? Because a complex number is not a real number. Not a real number, a complex number. But anyway, technicality, but I mean, it's not a number at all. So infinity minus infinity doesn't make any sense, right? It's not zero. I mean, it doesn't have any meaning. But not a lot of languages have that. This is a very loosely typed language. Here we go. Let's go back here. So there's infinity and not a number. Strings can be delimited with double quotes or single quotes. And if you want to escape a character, you can use a backslash in front of it. So let's suppose that you wanted to, to put a new line, you could put backslash n and it'll give you a new line. If you want to escape the backslash character itself, you just say backslash backslash. So that's something. Another thing is, plus minus and divide and multiply. Those are considered binary operators, but sometimes you will have unary operators. Basically, it's something that that can apply. You have one operator and one operand. So if I say type of 4.5 is going to give me a number. Type of this is a string. I can do type of. I can say type of infinity, right? And it'll tell me what's the data type. I could say type of z, which if you remember was our thing. It's a function, special kind of object. So sometimes it's not clear, especially when you're just starting out. What is the type that I'm dealing with right now, of the entity that I'm dealing with? You might want to use the type of unary operator to get that information. Did we use console log yet in here? Console log is going to be your friend. Console log is got to be the #1 debugging function that people use. What it does when you have a like when I was showing you this error on the Google, when I go to this website, it gives me an error. That right there is in the console. I can write errors to the console. I can say, check this value is an error. I think we did show that we can do this stuff on the desktop. We don't have to be on the server, right? We can use the browser to look at files on our desktop. So let me just show you real quick how this works. I'm going to go on my desktop. I'm going to create a file. We've got a new text document, and I'm going to call this one just junk.html. Yeah, I want to change the file extension, and I'm going to go and I'm going to edit this with Notepad++. Mind you, I'm just using it on the desktop here. And I'll create an HTML file. And here in the body section, I'm going to put a script. And this is what we call internal JavaScript. It's a good policy to put the scripts always at the end of the body section. That way, if the script is operating on other parts of the HTML exists and has been loaded before the script gets executed. But inside this script, I can put all the commands that you just saw me entering into the console. I can just type them in there. I can say x gets 5. You have to use semicolons in most cases. Y gets 7. And I can say console.log x plus y. Now, if I run this file, if I go into my desktop and I actually execute this file, I'll see nothing because nothing was sent to the body. It's a computation. But if I go to inspect and I check out the console, well, I guess it's not showing it to me. I didn't? Looks saved to me. Here, let me go to Chrome. So if in Chrome, at least in Chrome it works. I don't know about IE, I use Chrome all the time. So you can see that 12 is there. Whatever I console log will be displayed in the console, right? Console. So when you're doing your programs, you might want to see, well, maybe something's going on in the program. You can just console log it and go to run the page and see if it logged it. See what's in there. Where are we here? So Boolean values are the same as they are in other languages, true or false. Console log 3 greater than 2, 3 less than 2. It's just actually it'll type out the word true, but you can use that to execute a decision like you can in. It's an expression that you can use in an if statement or a loop or anything you want. Letters, capital letters are less than lowercase letters because their numbers are smaller on the ASCII chart. Hopefully you're familiar with those things. But a lot of these things you can test out. The important thing is that there's a Boolean data type. And the philosophy behind web in general is whatever happens, give an output with no errors. So even though it doesn't make any sense at all, don't cause an error because there's really no way to recover from it if you're out in the web, right? It's not like you can compile it and make sure that it's perfect and then deploy it. This isn't air traffic control, right, where a plane could crash. It's just a website. That's the philosophy behind it. So like here you have console.log not a number equals not a number. Well, not a number equals not a number is false. They just chose something for it to be and said, hey, move along. Don't let the website crash because of this. So you'll find that a lot of times everything will be working, but it doesn't make any sense. What?
So is the log like is that kind of like our print then, or is that just like a debug thing?
Just a debug. You could think of it as a print, but you know, some people think when they're printing, they're displaying it into the window. So let's just talk about that for a second. That's a really good question. So this right here is the document window. Remember we were talking about the document object model? This is the window or the document. This is the console. So I could say document.write. If I say, let's try that. Let's go to document.write. I'll say here, document.write, hey dude. Right? And there we've got, I'll refresh this, and, oh, I'm in the wrong thing. Refresh it. And you can see that the document, this is the document object model. The document is one object, and the document has all these different properties. I wonder if I can put document here. So this is the document, right? Document is an object. And it has all kinds of properties. In this case, they're all elements of a HTML file, right? There's actually more to it even than that. But you see these are all things. So this script element is one of the things in the document object. But this document is an object. Well, the console is another object. And then one of the properties of that object, one of the methods, is the log method. There's a lot of other stuff going on behind the scenes. You have no idea how much stuff is piled into one of these browsers. So there's actually a whole committee that standardizes all this. So anyway, not a number is and again, you could check the data type. This is a really good final exam question. Is if I go here and I say type of NAND. Type of not a number is number. It says it's not a number, but it's a number. Logical operators, we don't use and or. The words and or, we use 2 ampersands to mean and 2 pipe symbols to mean or. That's not too uncommon. We use the bang or the exclamation mark. Sometimes they just call it not to be not. So whatever, that's also a unary operator. It applies to one thing. Not equals, not true, not tall, right? I can make a Boolean that says tall, and that would be not. And usually, if you use that not on a another value, like here, if I say I can go to this console and I can say not 4. Not 4 is false. Why is not 4 false? Because 4 is true. 4 is true. Anything. If I say not 0, that's going to be true, because 0 is false. And we call it, in the computer field, we call it truthy and falsy. False-ish, true-ish. It's true enough for government work, right? If I say not hello, false. Why? Because hello is true. If I say not goodbye, also false, because goodbye is true. Any string is true. But if I say not nothing, it's true. So the empty string is falsy. 0 is falsy, and it'll get evaluated as false. Not false is going to be true. It takes a minute to get your head around all this way that they think about things. Now, it is important to take a look at how these things get evaluated. How do you suppose this is going to get evaluated? If I put this in here, it has 1 plus 1 equals 2, and 10 times 10 is greater than 50. It's going to evaluate it left to right. Sometimes it's just safer to put parentheses around things, even if you're pretty confident, because it's not necessarily obvious how things will get done. We talked about binary operators. We talked about unary operators. There's also ternary operators, where there's 3 operands. And 3 operands is this one here. You give a Boolean expression, a question mark, a value, colon, and another value. What happens is the first value if it's true, the second value if it's false. And you will see that a lot in many different web languages, but definitely JavaScript, because it's so much faster to write it. So if I want to say, actually I'll go into my code here. Who can give me I want to say console log if 2 is greater than 1, hello, otherwise goodbye. Who can tell me how to do that? So if 2 is greater than 1, console hello, otherwise console goodbye. Can anybody tell me how to do that? Ternary operator.
2 greater than 1.
2 greater than 1.
Question mark.
Question mark.
Quotation things. Hello.
Hello.
Quotation mark.
Colon.
And then quotation mark.
Goodbye. Now, is 2 greater than 1?
Yeah.
Yep. So what's it going to print? Better. Doesn't print hello, then the whole jig is up. A console logged hello. Now, of course, sometimes you don't say 2 is greater than 1. You have variables in there, or you have a true or false expression. And so, but you'll see that a lot in the wild, real code. Console? Sure.
No, your
Notepad++, yep. Now, another data type is undefined. So, if I go here to my console, if I say type of Q, I haven't used Q yet, right? Q has not been defined by anything, right? So if I say type of Q, it says undefined, because I haven't defined Q yet, right? Let's suppose I declare Q. The way you declare a variable, you can declare a variable. Why you would want to, I don't know, but you can. Var Q. Now I've declared Q, but I haven't assigned it a value yet, right? So if I say type of Q, it still doesn't know what data type it is, even though it has been declared. It exists out there. If I type Q, it'll say undefined. Now, if I assign Q something, Q gets. Let's suppose I'll give it open and closing braces like this. Now Q has become an object. If I say type of Q, it'll say object. I don't have to worry about change. If I want, I can change Q to be. I say Q gets 1, and now I say type of Q, and it's a number now. It just whatever it was before, it erases it. It's gone. So you don't have to worry about, like in Java, you can't just declare a new data type for the variable name. You have to release it or something. Not in JavaScript. In JavaScript, Java and JavaScript are completely unrelated. I don't know why the names are the same. I think it was a marketing thing from the early days, but it doesn't matter. Just forget it. They should be called zippy-d and blah blah. I mean, just they're totally different. Don't confuse them. I've had so many people looking up. Well, I looked it up. That's not JavaScript. That's Java. You know, it's totally not even related. I don't even know why they did that. Okay. Sometimes, well, very, very often, as a matter of fact, very often when you're having problems with your program, you've declared the character value of the number 5 because you put in quotation marks, or it got converted somehow. So here's good examples of how you could convert something and not necessarily know that it's happening. So if I go here and I do type of null, null is an object. By the way, if I say not null, it says true. Why? Because null is falsy also. So null is an object. Now if I say 5 plus null, what happens? It treats null as 0. It assumes that you meant 0. It doesn't worry about, it's like, he meant 0. They're very, very flexible. You know, it's like, we'll just assume he meant 0. If I say 5 plus null, it gives me 5 null. It assumes that I meant to make a string called null. It's not necessarily intuitively obvious, is it, what it's going to come up with. If I say 5 plus 3, what do you think it's going to come up with? 8? 53?
Yeah.
53. Who knows? I mean, it could have been 8, right? I mean, it's not always intuitively obvious. You need to get a feel for it, you will, about what it's going to do. But to me, if I have ever in doubt, I break open a console, check out to see what my different options are, and then I assume that I assume that Chrome is going to be the same as the other browsers, but you never know. Yeah.
When you say you don't know what it's going to do, does that mean another time that?
No, it's always the same.
It's the same thing. Okay.
If it conforms to this ECMA standard, JavaScript follows this standard called ECMA. Sometimes I just call this ECMA. It's even in the thing. And so there's a committee that makes the standards that all the browsers adhere to. If they didn't do that, if the companies that make these browsers didn't follow all the same rules, then everybody's website would look different.
Okay.
So, but some things are browser dependent. When you go to W3 schools, you'll have like JavaScript and CSS and HTML functions, and say yes, it works in Chrome, yes, it works in Firefox, but no, not Safari, not Internet Explorer. You know, it's not. Some things are it works everywhere the same. Other things. So hey, I don't know. I'm just showing you what happens, man. I didn't invent this or anything. So I accept neither credit nor blame. Usually blame. So anyway, so there will be what's called the automatic type conversion. Now this is something that is not widely known, I don't think, or at least I meet a lot of people that do not know this. Sometimes you'll have expressions in a daisy chain of ORs. And if any of the ORs are null, it keeps on going until it finds one that's valid. But as soon as it finds one that's true, it'll execute that one. So you can see here I've got console log null or user. We know user is true, right? We know all strings are true except for the empty string. So you could say, hello, or I should say, say null string or null string or null string or hello. And it'll give you hello. But it'll evaluate all of null strings. So let's take a look at that. That's actually kind of interesting. I wonder if I go back to console. So let's try that. Let's try null string or null string or actually what I'll do this. A gets null string, B gets null string, and C gets hello. And if I say A or B or C, it gives me hello, right? If I say B gets 15, I'll say, again, A plus B or C. So A or B, or it gives me the 15. Whichever is the first one that's not falsy, the first one that's truthy, it'll evaluate and return that. That can be a powerful little thing, and you will see that used. It's one of those shorthands that a lot of JavaScripters love. Okay, so now you've seen some of the different data types. You've seen how they handle numbers are not the same as integers and decimals or floats, and you've seen how the undefined values work. Maybe even played around a little bit with nan and infinity and all those other things. So what I suggest you do is, just if you could, put on your open up Notepad++ and on the CSIS server, create a little ch01.html and try out the different data types. Try out these particular data types. Run yourself a little example like I just did and give it a little test drive, right? If you want, you can go to the eloquent JavaScript and try. Here's intro.js, and you can see some of these. This really isn't. That's not really the first one. This chapter has no exercises. Okay, but you should try. Try adding strings to integers. Try dividing by null. Try doing a couple things. See if you can feel comfortable with that. Just for 5 minutes, make a little file, and we will pick up on chapter 2. It doesn't really matter. I mean, this is just for your own comfort level, so that when we get into the next chapter, you'll be kind of, your fingers are going to be ready to rock and roll. They get a lot harder as we go ahead, so please be ready.